Today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about IXL. IXL is a online problem-solving website that allows students of all grades and ability levels to work through practice problems on their whatever topics they're doing in class. So this is not a free service. I know for my students personally, they are getting it for free because my school district decided to purchase licenses for all of the students currently enrolled in math. But it runs about $70 a license if you decide to buy them separate from a school. If you go through a school, then it's much cheaper. You get 200 or you spend $250 and you get 25 licenses for classrooms. So it's definitely worth it for a school district to start paying for this rather than just making each kid buy it on their own. Alright, so what this website does is when you go in to choose a topic for math, it actually will go through and adjust the question levels based on the problems you're getting right and wrong. So you do get about 20 questions of free play, but because I'm a teacher in a district that uses this, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Alright, so once you've signed in, then you can go through and explore what some of these things have in store for us. So one of the big things is that this website, IXL, has worked very closely with the Virginia Department of Education to develop a page of standard-based examples, standard-based strands that you can work on. So you can go through any of the needed grade levels that you might need for math, language arts, science, or social studies. I'm going to focus on math because that's what I teach. And as you can see for mine, it kind of automatically goes to Algebra 2, and that's because that's the one I've used the most this school year. So what it has underneath here, you can even choose whether you want college career ready performance expectations. Do you want the standards of learning from Virginia for Algebra 2, for Algebra 2 Trig with the Trig, the honors class, the standards of learning for algebra functions data analysis, or the standards of learning for just trig. So this page kind of covers all of that. So if you go through and it starts off, I have it on just algebra 2, their first standard, the words are here, and the strands that can help students practice that exact standard are directly below it. So this is standard 1, section A. And this is standard 1, section B. And this is standard 1, section C. And it covers a lot that we could possibly use in our classes. But if you do not want to go that route, you can go straight to math. And math is split up between pre-K skills. It's numbered up until you hit the Algebra 1 by grade, and then the front page, the main screen of the website, has it as like Algebra 1 being grade 9, but it doesn't have to be limited to that, so that's why 8th grade is the last one that has the number grade. And you've got Algebra 1 skills, Geometry skills, Algebra 2 skills, and Pre-Calculus skills are the upper level, the high school level ones that you're seeing. So if we go into Algebra 2, what you'll see is by section, and each section is given a different letter, different topics that you could talk about. So if you want variable expressions, then that's A1 through 3. As you can tell, if it's got dark green bars next to it, that means that my students have practiced it. So like my students have not tried to solve linear equations word problems this school year. So as you go through the rest of this, you can see everything that could ever possibly be taught in an Algebra 2 classroom. And if there's a strand here that you don't want to use, I mean, you don't need to. If there's a strand that you want to use out of another class, feel free to. Some of these are duplicates, though. So I know like at my school, we do not teach hyperbolas at the Algebra 2 level. We teach it at the math analysis or the pre-calculus level. So I apologize, my son was interrupting me. So as I was saying, like with the hyperbola, we don't teach that at my school at the Algebra 2 level. We teach it at the pre-calculus level. But as you can tell, I've had students that have practiced that, and that's because I've told my pre-calculus students that they're welcome to try whatever ones they need to get ready for what we have in the class. So let's say specifically I'm talking about Algebra 2 trig, and I want to talk about practicing trigonometric ratios. Okay, so we're now inside trigonometric ratios. This is specifically sine, cosine, and tangent. So what you'll see on this screen is a few different things. You've got your problem here. You have a box that you can type in, and when you go to type into that box, for this particular problem, you have the choice of using a fraction bar or a square root if necessary. On the right-hand side of the screen over here, we have 3 different pieces of information that are given to the students. The first one is how many questions they've done. The second piece is how much time they've spent this session on the strand. And the last one is a SMART score. Now, with a SMART score, it's got an algorithm that it uses to give you the best possible measure of each kid's mastery level, but basically they're considered a complete master when they get it to 100. What I've noticed from experience is that if they don't get to at least a 70, they're not going to get the level that we're looking for in our classrooms. 80 is a better mark, and they hit what's called the challenge zone when they get to the 90 mark. So, I mean, if we're talking about the cosine of g, our students should know that the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so we're talking 33 over 65. I can go ahead and submit that. It'll tell me it's wonderful, and notice my points have gone up by 10. I've got one question right, and I've earned 10 points for it. So if I go ahead and do tangent of j, so the tangent is opposite over adjacent, so we're talking 12 over 5. And I'll hit submit. Now, it will, if you spend a lot of time on a problem that it thinks it wasn't that difficult, it will dock you points, just a little bit, little 1 or 2 points out of the 10 that you normally would get. Now let's say for whatever reason I get stumped and I'm looking at I and I can't figure out what the sine of I is. I of course know it should be 15 over 17, but let's say I type it backwards and I say 17 over 15 and I hit submit. So this is going to say, sorry, incorrect. The correct answer is, and it tells me what my right answer is right up here. And then it goes into an explanation. If your student is a student that doesn't need the explanation, they realize they just typed it in incorrectly, it was a real simple error, you can click got it right here, and it'll move on to the next question. If you need to understand why you did something incorrectly, then you can go through the explanation. So for review, find the sine, it's got the problem, here's what you put. Down here it'll tell you the sine of an angle is, in a right triangle, is a ratio. It's the length of the opposite side divided by the length of the hypotenuse. And it's color-coded this triangle nicely so you can easily see which side is considered the opposite and which side is considered the hypotenuse compared to that angle x. So then it walks you through how to solve that individual problem. And it says, okay, we know sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and it's using the same colors. So up top, green was opposite, purple was hypotenuse. Down here, it's highlighted the opposite in green and the hypotenuse in purple, just like it had said it was going, or just like it did above. So when you've got this going on, it works really well for students who are struggling with understanding a certain topic. Now, for teachers, what you are going to be interested in is going into the analytics side of the house. When you go into analytics, you have a lot of different options. Right now I'm on what's called the dashboard. It tells me how many questions my kids have answered this school year, how many hours they have spent practicing, and how many different skills I've had them practice on. It also has what my next goal is for the kids. It tells you by question or by days how many questions per day has been assigned, and it kind of knows what my school hours are. So it can give a real good guess as to how many of them are practicing at home versus practicing at school. So as you can see, in the past week, all of my students, all of their practice has been at home. And so then it gives you the same basic spots that are up here along the top. So if we hit trouble spots, if you just have it listed on all students, all subjects, all skills, it'll just pull whatever kids you have in your roster at that point in time and tell you their trouble spots. If you have a specific student that you know you want to look at, then you can drop down this menu and start looking for specific students. So for this one, I had 14 students that were struggling with trying to determine if these two shapes are similar, and it does give their names down at the bottom. But this is something where I know that we had just done this. They had had very little time in class to work on it, so their scores are going to stay very low because of it. If you choose the Students tab at the top, what this will do is give you a list of all of your students in a little bit different way. So like for me, this breaks down what they were doing for each topic. So if I've got 38% of the practice has been in Algebra 2 trig, 26% has been in trigonometric functions for the Algebra 2, 15% has been in angle measures, 11% has been in similarity for geometry. And it's got all the kids' names. It tells me exactly when they last practiced, if it was within 30 days, how many questions they've answered, how much time they spent on it, and how many different skills they worked on. Now, for instance, this child, Eric, the last time he was on here was 13 days ago. He did 177 total questions over 3 hours and 25 minutes, and he practiced 12 different skills. As you can tell, some of them he spent a lot of time on, and some of them he didn't. So each one will tell you exactly, like this one he's got a 9 on. He did one question, it took him 1 minute to do that question, so that's why his score is a 9. But this one right here, he obviously understands permutations and combinations because he did 28 questions in 6 minutes and has a 100. Now, it can be a little bit more difficult to do this type of stuff for large groups when you're trying to grade them because you can't see everybody all at one time. So this scores tab is a real lifesaver for me. What I can do is choose, I want to look at just my Algebra 1, Algebra 2 trig students that are in my 1B class. So what it'll do is change the name so it's only those kids. And then here is every Algebra 2 strand and their scores. So as you can see, like the ones I've assigned, they've all practiced. So then I can go through here and say, okay, I can just type in grades into my grade book right off of all of this stuff and make it very quick and very easy. So I hope that by seeing all of this, you feel like this might be something that works for you and your students. There's a lot of features. I know I'm still learning about all of them, but I really do enjoy the feedback that I get and the way that this tailors what the students are getting to each individual students and their needs as we go along. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me.